Have you ever unlocked a door you thought belonged only to you, and found strangers living inside? When Mark Jensen bought an old, abandoned farmhouse at the edge of town, he believed he was stepping into a fresh start for himself and his 8-year-old daughter. He never imagined that weeks later, he would walk through that creaky front door and discover 2 women quietly living in the home he had just begun to call theirs. Before we begin, if you love stories that remind you how powerful simple kindness can be, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Welcome to Heartfelt Moments, where real-life inspired stories warm the soul and remind us what truly matters. Mark was a single dad doing his best. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier, leaving him to raise little Emma on his own. Every day felt like a balancing act: work full-time at the auto repair shop, pack school lunches, help with homework, and somehow still find the strength to smile when Emma needed reassurance. The farmhouse wasn't much to look at. It sat on 5 quiet acres just outside a small Midwestern town. The paint was peeling, the porch sagged slightly to one side, and the windows were dusty from years of neglect. But it was affordable. And more than that, it felt like hope. Emma had run through the tall grass the day they first visited, laughing as if she'd found a secret kingdom. "It's like a storybook house, Daddy," she had said, her brown ponytail bouncing as she spun in circles. That was all Mark needed to hear. He used nearly all his savings to buy it. The plan was simple: fix it up slowly, room by room. They would stay in their small rental apartment for a few weeks while he handled the most urgent repairs: leaky pipes, cracked roof tiles, and faulty wiring. For nearly a month, Mark drove out to the farmhouse every weekend. He replaced broken boards on the porch and cleaned out old furniture left behind by the previous owner. The house smelled of dust and history, but with every sweep of his broom, it began to feel more alive. Then, one Saturday morning, everything changed. Mark had decided to bring Emma along to show her the progress. She was excited to see her room, which he had just painted a soft sky blue. As they pulled into the gravel driveway, Mark noticed something odd. There was smoke rising from the chimney. He froze. He hadn't installed the new furnace yet, and he was sure he had locked every door. "Daddy?" Emma whispered, sensing his sudden tension. "Stay in the car," Mark said gently, trying to keep his voice steady. His heart pounded as he walked up the porch steps. The front door, which he distinctly remembered locking, was slightly open. He pushed it slowly. Inside, the living room looked lived in. A small blanket lay folded neatly on the old couch. A kettle steamed softly on a portable camping stove near the fireplace. 2 women stood in the kitchen doorway, eyes wide with fear. One appeared to be in her early 30s, with tired eyes and dark hair pulled back into a loose bun. The other looked older, maybe in her late 50s, with streaks of gray in her short hair and a thin cardigan wrapped tightly around her shoulders. For a moment, no one spoke. "I'm sorry," the younger woman said quickly. "We didn't mean any harm. We thought the house was abandoned." Mark felt anger rising in his chest. This was his home. His hard-earned fresh start. He could call the police. He probably should. But then he noticed something else. In the corner of the room were 2 small backpacks. One had a hospital bracelet attached to the zipper. The older woman's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her cardigan closed. "Who are you?" Mark asked, his voice firm but not harsh. "My name is Sarah," the younger woman said. "This is my mom, Linda. We lost our apartment last month. My mom's medical bills got too high after her surgery. We've been staying wherever we can. We found this place unlocked once, and thought maybe we could stay just for a few nights." Linda's eyes filled with tears. "We were going to leave before anyone came," she whispered. "We just needed somewhere warm." Mark looked around the room again. They hadn't damaged anything. In fact, the floor looked cleaner than when he had left it. A small pile of chopped firewood sat neatly stacked by the fireplace. His mind raced. He thought of Emma sitting in the car, waiting. He thought of his wife, who had always been the kindest person he knew. She used to say, "Kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything." Mark took a slow breath. "You can't stay here," he said at first, and Sarah's face fell. But then he continued. "Not like this. It's not safe yet. The wiring isn't finished, and there's no proper heat." The 2 women looked defeated. "But," Mark added, "I might know someone who can help." That afternoon, instead of calling the police, Mark made a few phone calls. He contacted his church's outreach coordinator and a friend who worked at a local community shelter. Within hours, Sarah and Linda had a temporary place to stay safe, warm, and legal. Before they left, Sarah turned to Mark. "Why are you helping us?" she asked softly. Mark shrugged. because someone once helped me when I had nothing left." He didn't tell her the whole story. He didn't mention the neighbors who had brought meals after his wife passed away, or the coworker who covered his shifts so he could attend Emma's school events. But he felt those memories deeply in that moment. Over the next few weeks, something unexpected happened. Sarah called to say thank you, then she called again to update him. She had found part-time work at a grocery store. Linda's health was improving with proper care. One Saturday, as Mark worked on the farmhouse porch, a car pulled into the driveway. It was Sarah and Linda. They stepped out holding a basket. "We brought lunch," Linda said with a warm smile. They spent the afternoon helping Mark sand down old window frames and clear weeds from the garden. Emma laughed as Sarah showed her how to plant tomato seeds. The farmhouse, once empty and forgotten, now echoed with voices and shared stories. Months later, when Mark and Emma finally moved in, they invited Sarah and Linda over for dinner. By then, Sarah had secured a small apartment for them both. As they sat around the worn wooden table, Mark looked at the room. The walls were freshly painted. The floors shined. But what made the house truly feel like a home wasn't the repairs. It was the reminder that kindness creates connection. Mark could have chosen anger that day. He could have focused only on what was his. Instead, he chose compassion and, in doing so, he gained something far greater than property. He gained friends, he gave hope. And he showed his daughter that strength isn't just about protecting what's yours, it's about lifting others when they fall. Kindness doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just a phone call instead of a complaint, a conversation instead of a confrontation, a helping hand when you have every right to turn away. So the next time life places you at a crossroads, anger, understanding, judgment, or mercy, remember Mark's farmhouse. Because you never know. The stranger behind the door might just become part of your story. And in choosing kindness, you might not only change someone else's life, you might quietly transform your own. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a reminder today. And until next time, keep spreading kindness, because even the smallest act can turn an abandoned moment into a home filled with hope.